Now to continuing coverage, former and current staff members of the Hinton Community School District are accused of violating the state's Code of Professional Conduct and Ethics by the Iowa Board of Educational Examiners. This comes after 3 sets of parents sued the district earlier this year, claiming student athletes of the wrestling team were abused and assaulted by other teammates during 2 wrestling trips. According to the Iowa Board of Educational Examiners website, Casey Crawford, the former head wrestling coach, Brian DeYoung, the former athletic director, Phil Goostowers, the former high school principal, Bradley Scotus, an assistant wrestling coach, and Ken Slater, the superintendent, all have notes on their education license saying the board has found probable cause they violated the Code of Ethics. Under that code, all 5 men, the board believes, quote, failed to make a reasonable effort to protect the health and safety of the student or created conditions harmful to student learning, end quote. Now, this is just one of several allegations against each of them. Crawford, DeYoung, and Scotus are also accused of, quote, being on school premises or at a school-sponsored activity involving students while under the influence of possessing, using, or consuming alcohol, end quote. The 5 men will have a hearing. Their cases will be reviewed by an administrative judge. Now, after that judge will then draft a proposed finding to send to the Iowa Board of Educational Examiners. The board will issue a final decision. This could lead to disciplinary action, which ranges from a letter of reprimand to the suspension of their education license. The hearing dates have not yet been set. We'll continue to keep you updated. In the meantime, you can see the full list of allegations for each of the 5 men right now on KTIV.com.